Hello everybody, it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and welcome to my weekly episode number 119. And today we're going to talk about what I've been working on and my thoughts about entering competitions with your quilts. And well, we have a whole lot of other things to look at and to review. So let's have a little bit of coffee. And let's get into it. So I showed you this pattern before. It's a free one from Northcott called City Lights. There it is right there. And it's by Nina Urick. And as I said, it's a free pattern and it's based upon this line of fabric that I kind of fell in love with when I first saw it, called City Lights. And it's a panel. The free pattern is for creating what is behind me, and I finished sewing it together yesterday. It didn't take long. I think it took longer to cut the fabric than to actually assemble it, but that's one of the beauties of doing a panel. And lately I've sort of gotten into panels. I was never into them before. I kind of thought they were cheating when you're putting a quilt together with them, but you want to know something? If you like it, do it. What the heck? And I like this one. So this is just the flimsy, just the top. Later today I'm going to layer it, and sometime this week I'm going to quilt it. I'm not sure really how I want to quilt this. I thought of stippling it all over, but then I'm thinking, and the reason I'm thinking of that is because stippling has curvy lines. And one of the so-called rules, which I'm not one for rules really, is if you've got something that's very linear, very straight line in the pattern or in your blocks, then you should counterbalance that with a quilting that's got curves in it. But you know, I just don't know if that's going to look right. I think what I might do is just do a series of vertical and horizontal straight lines using my walking foot. And what I'm thinking right now is I might outline each one of these 4 sections just in a straight line, and then do in each one a combination. I'll do vertical lines in one, is what I'm trying to say, and horizontal in another, vertical then horizontal. And I'm trying to give the sort of the illusion of like a cityscape where, you know, the vertical lines, the way city skyscrapers shoot up, and also how cities spread out, and that'd be the horizontal lines. Maybe. I mean, you could say anything about your quilting and make it sound like it's symbolic for something. But that's what I'm thinking of doing right now. I just don't think curvy lines are going to look right with something like this. And then of course I have to bind it. So I'll probably have it done in time for next week's episode, and I'll be able to show you the finished product. Now, this isn't really, well, it is a quilt, but it's more of a wall hanging. And right now, depending on how it turns out, I'm thinking I might hang this one in my guest bedroom. I have an area that I think I could do that with. And lately, the way I've been hanging my quilts, this is an aside, instead of putting in a sleeve and you know, getting a curtain rod or something and mounting that on the wall, I've been using command hooks and a system of rings that I bought that are just, they're actually curtain rings. And I'm sure you've seen them. They're kind of decorative and they have a little clip on the end with a hook. And the hook is supposed to go over a very thin wire or a rod, and that suspends whatever you're trying to hang up. Well, I've been doing that with some of my quilts lately, and I find they work really well. Saves you having to put a sleeve on the back of it. The command hooks that I bought hold up to, I think, 5 or 6 pounds per hook, so that's plenty for a quilt, or for most quilts, or what I'm hanging on the wall hanging sort of a thing. And if I decide that I want to switch out one of them, I can very easily. I just unclip these little curtain things, hangers, and clip in a new one. And getting them off the wall is easy too, because command hooks are designed not to leave marks on your walls, and you just pull the little tab down and they pop right off. And I use a lot of command hooks. In fact, I've been ordering a lot of them from Amazon lately because I use them for a lot of things. I'm kind of in love with command hooks. So anyways, that's what I think I might do when I get this one done. So what else have I been working on? Well, I've carried on with my In the Hoop Rose of Sharon quilt, and I've done a couple of more of the blocks with that. The two of them are here. Sticky notes on them they're labeled, so I know which ones I've got completed, because it looks like there's 18 of these in the quilt, and so they take a little while to do. They are In the Hoop applique. And it's starting to grow on me. I'm still not sure what the final product might look like. I haven't got that far yet in my planning. I don't want this to look, well, okay, maybe I do want it to look what I call old lady quilt, okay? Again, sorry for any of you that might be elderly out there using that term, but you know what I mean, kind of the more traditional, the old-fashioned looking quilts, and this does lend itself to that. So depending on what fabric I use for sashing and borders and things like that, I might go to a vintage look, or I might go to and try and do something that makes this a little bit more modern. I'm not sure. These are still ideas playing around in my head. And as you know from things I've said before, I'm on a journey here, and I never know what something's going to look like until I've finished it. So that's where I am with this particular one right now. I did finish the butterflies and trees wall hanging, and in just a second I'm going to insert a video here of that. And talk a little bit more about it. But before I do that, I want to show you, I made another one of these In Control bags. This one I made for Walter. And this fabric that I used in it, I found it in my stash. I bought it some time ago, and I really, really like this. But I used up what I had in Walter's bag. So I went looking to see if I could find more of this fabric. And it is on certain websites, but none of them have it anymore. They're all out of stock of it. And I think it's been discontinued. I don't think they're printing any more of this, which is too bad, because I really like this fabric and I'd like to get some more of it. And actually I did find a spot that's not that far away from me that supposedly had this fabric in stock, and well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I get near the end of today's episode, because there's something there that came up because of my dealings with this particular online store that I want to share with you. But yeah, and he's got stuff in it. He's got a little ruler in it right now, and he's got something very heavy. He has pattern weights. Now, he looked high and low for decent pattern weights, and I guess he got two types. He has these ones, which look like little beanbag things. And then he found these discs, but he didn't like the way the discs looked, so he's made his own little covers for them. And that's what he's going to use to hold down his patterns. Now, we got the idea of that, and I know pattern weights are probably not something new to many of you who do garment sewing, new to me as a quilter. But we were watching the Great British Sewing Bee, and everybody was using pattern weights for that. And so Walter decided he maybe should have some of those as well. So he went out and found a source and bought them. I think he just got them off of Amazon, I'm not sure. So yeah, so Walter's loving his bag, and I have to admit I did a little better job on that bag because it was my second one, and that often happens when you make one thing for the first time. It usually turns out okay if you're lucky, but when you do it a second time, you learn from your mistakes and move on. And I didn't have that many mistakes in my bag when I made it, because the bags by Annie instructions, as you've heard me say before, are absolutely excellent. And that's why I'm going to attempt, and I'm just looking over the side, a Place for Everything 2.0 bag by her design. I got that, I showed that pattern to you last week. It came in my peach tree order, and that'll be probably my next project, I think, after I get this one quilted. I am thinking of taking one of my smaller UFOs too, and getting them both. Since I'm layering one, I might as well layer the other one. And I've got two that I could sort of quilt, you know, one right after the other, get at least get another UFO out of the way. I'll see about that. Also, other projects, the mystery quilt from my ex-guild. We got the last installment this morning for it, and so I need to finish that one up as well. So, you know, there's no lack of projects here, none whatsoever. Although I have to make a confession. Lately, I've been having a little trouble getting myself into my sewing room and working on something. Once I do, like this yesterday, I was only going to do a few things on it. I did one of these Rose of Sharon things, and I thought, yeah, that's all I'm going to do. Well, once I got into this, I just kept going. And I guess that's one of the secrets if you're losing, you think you're losing your mojo here for creativity. Just start and work, and it'll come back to you. So that's the way I am too. And of course, I am procrastinating about layering this one and quilting it. Once I get into it, I'll be fine. Do other people out there have that problem? I'm pretty sure you probably do. I don't think it's unique to me. So what else have I been making? Just before I show you the butterflies and trees wall hanging that I made, I want to show you the other things I've been making. Okay, these are going to be possibly potential Christmas presents for, you know, the ladies at Ultimate Sewing. I hope they're not watching this. I always like to give them something at Christmas time because they treat both Walter and I very, very well. And I usually like to make something for them. Well, this year I'm thinking I'll make them pin cushions. I'll probably create little bags of goodies for them. I love making things for other people. I really do. And so I'm making these pin cushions using my 3D printer. Now this one you've seen before. This is the owl one of my favorites. I have one for myself, and this is one I've made as a potential gift. And what I did was I went on to the sites where I find my various things I print on my 3D printer and basically look for flower pots or holders of some sort that I could adapt to pin cushions. So here's what I'm talking about. This is an Easter bunny, and he has a little cup in front of him, and I think the idea is at Easter time you'd fill this with candy and give it to a kid or something like that. You could plant something in it. You can make it bigger to do that. But I thought it'd make a cute pin cushion. And I did all of these pin cushions I'm showing you, I did in rainbow filament. Went through quite a bit of rainbow filament, but this one's one of my favorites as well. I think he turned out really cute. I did do some smaller ones. This one, now they called it a pineapple. I might have made it a little on the tiny side, so I might make this one a little bigger. And I made this too big. So this is an oops. And now I could have taken this out of it and made it properly to fit. But after I got it in there and looked at it, I thought, you know, it looks like a cactus to a certain extent. So I just left it. I don't know. I don't think I would give this one to anybody. I don't think it's up to standard for that. And of course, you've seen this. Now this is a little smaller version, the thimble. The ones I made for myself, so I'll just show you in comparison here. Here's one of mine, and here's one that I made. So you can see there is a difference in the size. I just want to see what it will look like at that size, and it's kind of cute. It could sit right on the, you know, your sewing machine table kind of a thing off to the side and be handy. So that's cute. And here's another one in a similar vein. This was supposed to be a vase or a pot, and I think that one's kind of cute too, little ones. And then I did a Buddha head. Now this was supposed to be a flower pot. I shrunk it down to about half its size, and it's now pinhead. That's what I call them, pinhead. But I think that's kind of neat as well. In fact, I like this Buddha head thing so much that I made one in what they call bronze on the filament. I call it olive green, and I made it a little bigger. And as we speak, I've got a huge one printing on my 3D printer. That's not going to be a pin cushion. I need another flower pot because during COVID I have been rooting philodendrons from my main philodendron. I have also started rooting some basil as well, or basil, whichever way you want to say it, which is an herb, because I digress again, but we brought in one of our basil plants from last summer in the fall to see if it would survive, and it did. It's doing very, very well. So I'm taking cuttings from it and starting more of them for inside, because we put basil in a lot of things. So anyways, that was a digression. So let's head. So I have this variety of pin cushions. I'm going to make a few more. I'll make some out of the ones that I really like here as well, like the Buddha head, the owl, and the bunny rabbit, and probably the thimble as well. And these are going to be potentially, as I said, gifts for people. So I guess I'm getting ahead of the Christmas rush. Okay, so what else? Okay, so that takes me back to butterflies and trees wall hanging. This wall hanging I did, I made it purposely to hang on a pillar that's in our rec room. And the pillar's very narrow. It's boxed in. And I just thought it needed a little something. So I experimented again using that method of Redmond's, that uses a tearaway stabilizer that you put texture paste on and some other things, and then run it through your printer, printing whatever you want to print on it, and then developing that into a quilt or a wall hanging. So that's what I've done here. And I've created a little video so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is my latest fiber art project. I needed something for this pillar in my rec room, and so I created this. Now what I did was I used that technique of printing on flexible molding paste that you've applied to a piece of tearaway stabilizer, and then I printed on top of that after I spread some digital grounds onto it and let that dry. And this is my own design, and then I put it into my embroidery machine, and I did some quilting, some stippling on each one of these pieces. Then I put the 4 pieces together, as you see here, bordered them, did a simple blanket type of backing on it where you pull, I guess they call that bagging out, where you pull the backing through the front and that kind of thing. And then I did a little bit more simple walking foot quilting on this as well. So I'll take you close to it. And there you can see I did the actual printing through my printer using the method that I mentioned before, and I created this abstract design by layering different images on top of each other and adjusting the transparency of each layer and the hue and things like that. And each one's a little bit different, but they all use the same kind of layers. Actually, the one here at the bottom is the same as the one at the top. And then I had this fabric in my stash that I used for the sashing and for the binding. And here you can see I just did a simple wavy line walking foot quilting there, and I just did on the sashing, find the sashing here, I just did 3 straight stitch lines. So I think it came out really well, and it sort of breaks up the monotony of that pillar. So it's a nice decorative piece, and I did measure the pillar to figure out the size of this as well. So yeah, just a quick little project for a piece of home decor. So I'm really still experimenting with that process. So that's moving me a little bit away from traditional quilting and more into fiber art. And so what's today's demo? Well, I don't really have anything to show you or how to use something, but I got thinking about something that used to be a big concern of mine when I first got into quilting. Excuse me. And that was competition. Now, I had at one point in time a great goal to enter a quilt show competition, be judged, and win. It's all about the winning. Well, yes it is. Okay, yes it is. I'm sorry, but it is. We'd all like to say it's, well, it's the experience. No, it's not. We want to win. So I did. Now, this was for my ex-guild. It was their big quilt show. And I've already talked to you about the quilt that I entered, the Flight of Friendship or Flutter of Friendship or something, the butterfly quilt that hangs over top of my bed. I was very proud of that project, and even though I knew the competition was going to be stiff and I was a beginner quilter, that I had no chance of winning, in the back of my mind I'm going, but what if, what if, what if? It's the same reason why I don't buy lottery tickets, because I go, what if, what if, what if? And then I'm sadly disappointed, even though I know I'm going to be disappointed. I don't know if that made sense. But anyways, I was all about competition, and of course I didn't win. And, you know, of course I didn't win, you know. Yeah, but it has gotten me thinking about, you know, the pressure that's put on quilters to be competitive. And it's not just quilt shows, okay? There's a lot of pressure if you belong to a guild, too, I found. They have something called show and share. Yes, it's supposed to be an opportunity for you to basically get up and brag about what you just finished, your latest project. But in the guild I belong to, there was a lot of competition. There were several ladies who showed everything under the sun every month. They weren't all finished quilts. They were tops. First of all, I have a problem with that. I mean, I show you a work in progress. That's one thing. But when you're going to a show and share in a quilt guild and you've got 5 or 6 quilt tops that you're going to show, those aren't quilts. A quilt is not a quilt until it's layered and quilted. All this is right now is some decorative fabric. Okay? It is not a quilt by definition. But it's like this big competition. Look what I got done this month. Look what I got done. Well, you didn't get them done. They're unfinished. Now, if they had a section at these kind of guilds where they said, okay, let's see your works in progress, that's different. But a show and share to show a finished project is just that, show a finished project. So a lot of ladies I know did not get up and show what they were working on or show anything at all, because I think they were put off by the competition, the pressure. I did show some of mine, but I am very proud to say I never once showed an unfinished object. They were all finished. There were 2 ladies in this guild especially who constantly showed unfinished pieces. And one of them in particular, she would strategically place herself in the lineup for showing these quilts. So she would be the last one. Because you know, always remember the last thing first, right? Now, quite frankly, I didn't think her quilts were worth the showing. Okay, I'm sorry, I said it. I shouldn't criticize. You know, because I've said before that really you should be supportive of other quilters. But really, some of the stuff she showed was just garbage. It really was. But she was such a personality that it intimidated other people. They didn't want to show their stuff. So that's pressure. There's pressure put out there on YouTube. If you watch a lot of YouTubes, you see people who have been doing this for years. They're professionals, and you can be intimidated by that. Oh, I'll never be able to come up to that standard, that kind of thing. That's why I talk about my quilts and show you my mistakes all the time. That's why I've started the interviews with subscribers, because I want to relieve the competition idea. Quilting is fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be competitive. But we all get caught up in that competitive spirit, don't we? And for some people, that can be something that really stops you from achieving your full potential, because you're comparing yourself to others. People show their finished work on Facebook in various groups, and that's great. Great for inspiration and the whole bit. I do that too. But you know, there's a little sense of competition in there, you know, because I feel it too. I want to show what I have done. I want to hear nice things about my quilts. We all do. And I mean, that's not a bad thing when it's done in a supportive environment, but just don't let it get to you. Don't re-examine why you are a quilter. Do you enjoy the journey? Or what? Well, basically, what's important to you? Is it the process or is it the product? For me, it's the process. I learn something with every quilt that I make. I get better at certain things, and I learn new things, new techniques. And once the project is done, I'm done with it. Because where's it going to go? Most of my quilts are folded up and either sitting on a chair in my rec room or laid across the guest room bed. A few hang on the wall, but I don't have enough wall space for them all. There they are, and I promptly forget that I even have them. So that's why I need to give them away. Let someone else enjoy them. So by the time, like right now, I'm thinking of my next project, even though I haven't got this one finished, because the quilting part of it is not something I yet enjoy as much as I enjoy piecing. So don't stress out about your quilts. If it brings you joy because you enjoy the process, if you're happy with the finished product, yeah, sure. It may not win great big ribbons at major, excuse me, hiccups. It may not win big prizes at a major national quilt show. You may not have somebody approach you to put it in the Smithsonian or wherever, that kind of thing. But if it brings you joy and happiness, then it's a success. That's all there is to it. So don't be intimidated by those who look at everything as a competition. Okay, so that takes us to the subscribers quilt of the week, and this is by Joan Alexander, and I have a little video for you to see right now. This week's quilt comes from subscriber Joan Alexander, and Joan says, I made this a few years ago and nosed it in my photos, so I thought I would forward it to you. It was from a Craftsy class, and each of the blocks was quilted by Walking Foot before construction. Enjoy. And yes, actually it's very interesting looking quilt. It's very much a lot of fun with all the elements that are on there, and I think this is probably made for a child, or maybe it's a fidget quilt. I'm not sure which. Joan didn't say. But I think it's really great. And yes, I'm very aware of what Craftsy used to be. I used to have a membership to them, and I learned quite a bit there. It's unfortunate that it doesn't exist in the same format today. So thank you, Joan, for sending me these pictures of your great quilt. So that takes us to this week's shout-outs. My contact information is in the show notes. Also, there's save the date for Stephen's Creative Birthday Bash, July the 10th. And more details to come with that. That's in less than a month's time. So, yeah, watch for the details and everything, and hope to see as many of you as I can on that day. I have a couple of things planned for that event as well. I'm still working on it. If you would like to have one of your quilts or a couple of your quilts featured here on the Idiot Quilter, well, you know the drill, and the information is in the show notes as well about that, and I'd really appreciate receiving those pictures and a brief blurb about them. Also, this week's interview is going up. There's a link for it below, and I need people to interview. Don't be shy. Please, 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 please reach out to me and say, I want to be interviewed. Yay! I'll be extremely happy about that. There's a link to this week's YouTube channel, a link to the last episode of the So Chatty, episode 12, Know Your Feet. We talked about some of the feet that come with your sewing machine, but you may not know how to use them. One of those is your button holder. A lot of people are intimidated by the button holder, but Walter shows you how easy it is to use, since he uses it all the time when he's making his men's shirts, and how easy it is. You shouldn't be intimidated by the button holder. And there is a link to the pattern that I'm going to show you today that comes from my vision board. and of course the links to two of my favorite quilt stores. So that takes us to the YouTube channel of this week, and this is by a lady named Erica Arndt. I've only recently come across her, and I checked out her YouTube channel, and it's a great wealth of information that includes sewing projects, quilting projects. She talks about sewing machine fixes and technical aspects of sewing machines too. It's a wealth of information. It's very professional in its appearance, and it's a very high quality production as well. She also says that she's a homeschooler, and she has a separate channel about homeschooling strategies as well. So for those of you that might be into homeschooling, and I know during COVID a lot of you've had to become homeschoolers, you might find that spin-off channel of interest as well. But do check her YouTube channel out. There's something there for all levels of quilting and sewing. Okay, and the links in the show notes. That takes us to possible future projects. This is on my vision board, and I was earlier talking about modern quilts. I have yet to make what I would call a modern quilt, but here's one that kind of appealed to me. It looks fairly simple in its design, and modern quilts tend to be very geometric from what I've seen, lots of negative space on them, and relatively simple in construction. I think it's all in the placement, but this one sort of appealed to me. Again, these are not the colors that I would use. Now, they do have templates with this one at the back for making the triangles. I have not read through the entire pattern yet. There's probably, I don't like using templates all that much, especially for making something like triangles. I think there might be a better way to do this, and as I look here, there seems to be. So yeah, they basically are using strips of fabric for this and cutting them to create these triangles. So yeah, that's in the works. It is called Evergreen. It is by a company called AGF, which I think is Art Gallery's Fabric. I have a link to this pattern. It's a freebie, and this particular site has a lot of modern quilt freebie patterns. And so if you're interested in this, you can download it for free and check it out. If you do it before I do that one, be sure to show it to me. Send me pictures of it, and I can feature it on here. Okay, so what's that take us to? Little teaser here. Second interview that I have done with a regular subscriber, Jean Eubanks. Jeannie, as she likes to be called, is a delightful person. I am very proud to call her a friend. We have never met physically, but we have met virtually many times through Craft and Chat, through chats on Stephen and Walter Live. And so I thought she would be a natural person to interview. And she is an interesting person, as you're going to find out, because you can't really pigeonhole her into one type of art form. Yes, she quilts, but she does so much more as well. And that's why I thought she'd make a very interesting interview. So here's a little teaser of that interview.
My next question then for you is, what is your favorite creation or creations and why? Something that stands out and all the things that you've probably done that is still something you really like?
Okay, I keep a journal. And so I was looking through my journal, and I realized the thing I like best is something that's not finished. It's that applique with a log cabin and a bear and a deer that I showed, I think, on one of our crafting chats. That it was, I wanted to learn to applique, so I learned to applique. I put it on a background that I left blank so that Andy can paint in the background. And then our sister Dale, who does exquisite woodworking, can create the frame for it.
Whoa. That's a real family project.
And that's, it's not finished yet because I've sent mine off to Andy. But
so as I've said, I would love to interview anybody. Okay, everybody has a story. Everybody has talent. Okay, don't sell yourself short. Let me interview you, please. Okay, so that takes me to one of my quilts that I'm going to critique. It's not a quilt this week. It is a table runner. It's an autumn table runner that I made probably about a year ago or so. And I made this one reversible as well. So here's my discussion of that particular table runner. The quilt from my own collection that I'm critiquing this week is called my Autumn Table Runner. I know, what an original name. But in this one, I just took some scrap fall fabrics that I had laying around and I put together this table runner. Now you can see that I did 3 blocks that are stars and 3 blocks that are, well, I'm really not sure what they are. They sort of look like a pattern that is well known, but I think I mixed it up at the time. This was early on when I was doing table runners, so I probably just made that up from my mind. But if you'll notice, I do have a border on it. It is very fallish, and I think it turned out pretty good, except looking at it right now, and I don't know if it's because of the way I took the picture or not, but my borders or my edges of my table runner look a little wonky, which I have a feeling it's more me than it is the actual photograph. I did quilt this on my what am I trying to say? I did quilt it on my embroidery machine. And I did feathers on it. Now I know they're not very obvious in this particular slide, but if you go to the next slide, you get a better look at it. And this is actually the back of the quilt. So I made a reversible quilt, or table runner, not quilt. And you can see the feathers there. And boy, I wish I could do feathers like that in free motion, but nope, I relied upon computers to do that. This is a simple chevron, again made up of scraps, and then I thought I'd get a little fancy and I put some decorative stitching at the top and at the bottom, which doesn't look too bad, but as another thought, I think I should have just avoided doing that. It wasn't necessary. But overall, it does look very fallish, and it does go on my dining room table come around the tail end of September into October before I swap it out for my Christmas one. So that's my critique of one of the table runners I made very early in my quilting career. So now I'm on to the fabric store of the week, online fabric store. Now, a lot of these online fabric stores that I am looking at, first of all, my criterion is to keep it Canadian. And second of all, I base my review on the knowledge I get from their website. And this one just popped up out of the blue. I think a subscriber recommended this place to me, and it's called the Jelly Roll Shop. Well, they had me rate at the name Jelly Roll Shop because you know how I love my pre-cuts, and I especially love jelly rolls because I love doing strip piecing. And so I immediately went and checked them out. Now they're located in a place in Alberta called Fulon. I'm not sure how to say it. F-A-L-U-N. And I went to their About section of their website to find out more about them. And I'm going to read that to you because I think it explains them a little better than I can explain them. It says, I want to start off by introducing myself. My name is Stephanie Wilson. I'm the owner of Jelly Roll Shop alongside my husband, Scott. I started sewing before I began elementary school. I continued with this hobby as a child and young adult. I have always had a passion for sewing. At a young age, my Nana helped move my passion forward. She allowed me to use her sewing machine to make items for my dolls. At the age of 4, my Nana ran a fashion fabric store until she retired. She is a very special lady who always believed in her grandchildren. She is now 94 years old and still has her sewing machine set up in her living room. At my last visit with her, we had a small gathering at her apartment so my uncle could put together her new sewing machine table. The love for sewing runs deep in our family. When I was 3 years of age, my mother took over my nanny's company. My mom always instilled us with wonderful work ethic. She had us counting change and taking phone calls at a very young age, and we loved it. We thought we were playing store, but it was real life. The shop soon transformed from fashion to quilting. Now, here I am starting a very exciting chapter in my life. My husband and I are now running Jelly Roll Shop. We are so excited to assist everyone with their quilting needs. So there's some background there, and I always like reading the background stories on these online shops because it gives you a flavor for what they're all about. And this one's obviously a family-owned business, which I like to support as well, especially during COVID. And we know why. So I checked out their fabric selection, and they really have a good selection. Now prices are $15.96, start at about $15.96 a yard and up. Now a yard, okay, you know my pet peeve with that. It should be meters, but it's a yard. They have cotton, they have flannel, they have wide back, and they have fireside backing. And fireside backing, I recently learned, is basically a very soft fabric that makes, I think sometimes they might call this cuddle, and they might call it minky, or it's something like that, but it's very soft, very soft. They also have tea toweling fabric as well, and this is the first place I've come across where they actually have what they call tea toweling fabric. And I just said to Walter the other day, I should maybe order some of that, make us some new tea towels, because ours are getting really kind of ratty. And they do have the major fabric brands as well. And pre-cuts, and it's true to their name, they have tons of jelly rolls and other pre-cuts to choose from, which makes me very excited. A good selection of quilting batting as well, and interfacing and stabilizers. So really, they've got it all. They don't sell sewing machines, but they do have a good selection of notions, and they're at about the average price, which you would expect to pay. Patterns and kits, they have a good selection of both. Now their thread, they carry Aurifil, Metler, and DMC, and a couple of others that I'm not really familiar with. They don't really have any classes, but that's to be expected right now with COVID. And they do sell books and lots of things. They have lots of things on sale, and the prices seem pretty good on the sale items as well. Now their shipping, I'll just read you what they say about their shipping. It seems that shipping varies between all these shops I've been reviewing, and some of them are very complicated. So that's why I'd rather read this information to you than do it from memory. So they say they have free shipping within Canada, over $149 in Canadian money, of course. There is an exception. If the shipping charges are over $50, Jelly Roll Shop will cover the first $50 and bill the remainder amount to your order. This is not the first shop that I've seen that sort of thing with. Shipping in Canada, by the way, whether you live inside Canada or outside of Canada, is very expensive. Our postal service, they give us such sucky service, but they charge us for sucky service. They say that your order will be shipped as quickly as possible. It will include a receipt, and a total will reflect actual shipping charges. This means if the actual shipping charge is less than, we adjust the cost down. So that's good to know. They're not gouging you on the shipping as well. They don't say anything about tracking though, which is something else that I have a pet peeve about. I want a tracking number so I can see where my stuff is and how long it's going to take to get to me. So they have a real breakdown here on orders. It says if your order is up to $15, it'll cost you $5.50 in Canada, $12 for US, and $35 for international, and it goes from there. So let's say you had just slightly under $100, it would cost you $14 Canadian for shipping, $20 US, and $70 international. Now I'm assuming that all those shipping charges are listed in Canadian dollars. So although it says for US, for example, $20, I think they're charging it in Canadian funds, so that means it's only about $16, depending on the exchange rate at the time, to ship to the US. So that's not terrible. That's not terrible in my opinion. Then they say for remote areas of Canada and USA where shipping is much higher due to having to fly postal, that would be, I guess, the territories here in Canada and possibly Alaska and maybe Hawaii, that have to be flown in by small aircraft, shipping will be adjusted accordingly. They don't really have a physical store because they operate out of their home and they're only open on Fridays. So if you're in their area in Alberta, they're only open on Fridays because it's their home. So they must have an area set up where they have their wares. Which, yeah, that's a little weird. So I'm sure, I don't know, it may be in a fairly remote part of Alberta. I've never heard of that part of Alberta, but then if it is in Edmonton or Calgary, I haven't really heard of the place, right? But so they really are focusing on their online store. Now, I haven't ordered anything from them yet, but I'm going to take a look at that tea toweling later today again, and check that out and see what the cost is, and I might order some of that. But knowing me, I'll get sidetracked by their jelly rolls and probably order some of those too. So if I do, on future episodes, I'll let you know how that turns out. Okay. So just some final thoughts before I close off for today. I mentioned before the store where I was looking, where I thought I had ordered some of this fabric. It's called Feline Frolic, and it's by Laura Birch, is the designer. And that particular pattern I think is called Royal Something Pack. I did a search. I found this store in Cambridge, Ontario, which is an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me, towards on the west side of Toronto. And it looked like it was a little mom and pop sort of store, and they had it. So I ordered 4 meters of it. Well, I got an email the next day telling me that unfortunately that was out of stock. That did not surprise me because everywhere was out of stock of this particular fabric, and I think that fabric is no longer being printed. But it was there. They said they had it. Well, it was on their website. She offered me, in place of it, 3 meters of one fabric and 1 meter of another fabric that were in the same line. Well, I knew what those looked like. I wasn't interested in those. I only wanted this one. So I thanked her for letting me know about that. And I did suggest to her, though, that if you don't have something in stock, you should remove it from your web page. And that's a pet peeve I've got with a lot of online fabric stores, not just this particular one. There are other ones out there that don't seem to keep up with what's on their website. And so here you are, you place an order, and then you get this email or whatever, or saying, oh no, I'm sorry, it's been canceled. Or, what's even worse, is they go ahead and send you everything else you may have ordered. And when you get your order, you find that you've been credited for the amount for what they didn't send you. I don't like that either. I want to be prepared. Now, in the favor of this particular store, I am going to say, and I'm not mentioning the store because I think it's unfair for me to actually mention what the name of the store is because I haven't had any more contact with them yet. And so until I do, I'm not really going to say much more about them, except that this is the first online store that it came up on my browser when I was filling out my credit card information that this was not a secured site. And that I wasn't happy about. But I wanted this fabric so bad I was taking a chance, and as it turned out, I didn't. Now, having said that, they did mention that they would not charge my credit card until they had shipped my order, which is kind of nice because most of them, it's automatic, and the way their system is set up, a lot of them are set up with Shopify, and just automatically, that's it, bang, it's charged to your credit card before they've even shipped it or put your order together, which causes a bit of a problem for the merchant, I would think, because if they are out of something and they have to credit back to your account, then they have to go through all kinds of things. because the charge has already been made there. But the bottom line here for me is, if you don't have it, don't show it. It's just making more work for themselves, and it pisses off your customer. So keep up with your inventory. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hear the excuse that we don't have the manpower. You don't have the manpower. If you don't have the system set up in a way to do this, why are you running an online store? It's all part of customer service. And you know how I feel about customer service. You give me good customer service, I will come back. I will come back. If you're efficient, I will come back. But yeah. So anyways, I just thought I'd end off with that little pet peeve. And just another reminder too that July 10th, save the date. I'm getting excited about it. I want to see you all there at Stephen's Creative Birthday Bash. So day. We're going to have fun. Okay, and I hope you have fun the rest of this week. I hope you do something creative, and we'll see you for the next episode of The Idiot Quilter. Bye for now.